The shy new Bitcoin billionaire, Jack Thompson, hires his housekeeper, Emily Carter, to pretend to be his wife for the holiday parties. But when Emily spoke, can one holiday season reveal what's truly missing in a life of luxury? Christmas tree sparkles. Before we continue, tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching the video from. And don't forget to subscribe. In the heart of a sprawling city, where skyscrapers pierced the heavens and the glow of neon lights illuminated the streets below, Jack found himself ensconced in the cold, sterile walls of his newly acquired mansion. The opulence around him was suffocating. The grand foyer, adorned with glimmering chandeliers and polished marble floors, felt more like a prison than a sanctuary. As a newly minted billionaire, Jack had acquired wealth that most could only dream of, but with that came an avalanche of expectations that weighed heavily on his shoulders. He had made his fortune through Bitcoin, a digital currency that had reshaped the financial landscape, but the triumph felt hollow in the absence of companionship. Jack often retreated to the solitude of his expansive estate, where he could ignore the world outside. He had always been reserved, a man of few words and even fewer social connections. His reclusive nature, once a quirky trait, had now transformed into a debilitating shyness that prevented him from engaging in the high society gatherings that were expected of someone of his stature. The holidays were particularly daunting. They brought forth a wave of family obligations and social events that loomed larger than any investment portfolio. As the dates approached, dread settled in his stomach, a knot that tightened with each passing day. The gatherings promised an audience of well-heeled relatives, each one scrutinizing his every move and whispering behind their designer-clad backs. The pressure to present himself as a successful, well-adjusted billionaire was immense. He envisioned the forced smiles, the rehearsed laughter, and the inevitable questions regarding his personal life. The concern would never be about his wealth. Rather, it would shift to his relationship status. Jack had never been married, nor had he seriously dated anyone since his rise to fame. The thought of facing his family alone, without the facade of a partner by his side, was unbearable. As he paced through the marble halls, Jack felt the isolation pressing in on him. The echo of his footsteps was a constant reminder of his solitude, as if the mansion itself was mocking him. He had grown accustomed to the silence, but now it felt deafening. The holidays were meant to be a time of joy and togetherness, yet for him, they signaled the onset of loneliness. He longed for the warmth of companionship, but every attempt to forge connections had ended in awkwardness or rejection. The world of high society was filled with pretense, and Jack was ill-equipped to navigate such treacherous waters. Meanwhile, in a modest apartment on the outskirts of the city, Emily juggled her responsibilities as a single mother with her job as Jack's housekeeper. Life had not been kind to her, but she was resilient. Every day was a balancing act, as she navigated the challenges of raising her young son while making ends meet. Her work for Jack provided a steady income, but it came with its own set of complications. Cleaning the lavish mansion was a stark contrast to her own humble abode, and she often felt like an intruder in his world. Emily was diligent and hardworking, pouring herself into her tasks while keeping her head down. Her interactions with Jack had been minimal, consisting mostly of polite nods and brief exchanges. She had heard whispers about his wealth and the strangeness of his reclusive lifestyle, but the man himself was a mystery. He rarely ventured beyond the confines of his estate, and when he did, he seemed to carry an air of melancholy that intrigued her. She often wondered what thoughts swirled behind those deep-set eyes, what burdens he bore beneath the tailored suits that seemed to weigh him down. One fateful afternoon, as Emily meticulously dusted the ornate furniture in the grand living room, her thoughts drifted to her son, who was eagerly awaiting Christmas. The holiday season was a time of magic for children, yet for her, it was a reminder of the limitations of her financial situation. She dreamt of giving him the world, of filling their small apartment with decorations and gifts, but reality often dictated otherwise. As she worked, she lost herself in her thoughts, unaware that Jack had entered the room, his presence almost ghost-like. In that moment, Jack's internal struggle spilled over. He had been feeling particularly overwhelmed by the looming holiday obligations and the prospect of facing his family alone. The weight of his loneliness had become unbearable, and unwittingly, he began to share snippets of his life story with Emily, as if she were an old friend instead of a mere employee. He spoke of his isolation, the expectations that suffocated him, and the longing for a genuine connection. His words, unguarded and raw, poured out like a dam breaking, revealing the vulnerability he so often concealed. Emily, taken aback by this unexpected revelation, paused in her cleaning. She had never seen Jack in such a light, his polished exterior cracking to reveal a man grappling with his own demons. The distance between them seemed to dissipate, if only for a moment, as she listened intently to his struggles. She could see the conflict etched on his face, the pain of a man who had gained everything yet felt utterly alone. It was a stark reminder of the humanity that lay beneath the wealth, a reminder that even those who seemed untouchable faced their own battles. As Jack spoke, Emily felt a flicker of empathy for him. She understood the weight of expectations. She carried her own burdens daily, striving to be the best mother she could be despite the obstacles. Yet, in the midst of her own struggles, she found a sense of purpose in helping him, even if it was just by listening. The walls that separated them began to crumble, and in that shared moment of vulnerability, their lives intersected in a way neither had anticipated. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an amber glow through the expansive windows, Jack's mind began to race with possibilities. He was desperate to escape the scrutiny of his family during the upcoming holiday gatherings, which now seemed like an insurmountable challenge. The thought of introducing a fake partner had crossed his mind before, but the idea felt ludicrous. Yet, as he glanced at Emily, he couldn't shake the notion that perhaps she could be the answer to his predicament. She was kind, genuine, and unsuspecting of the high society games that awaited her. The next day, as Emily returned to the mansion to continue her work, Jack found himself grappling with his thoughts. The idea of asking her to pose as his wife was absurd, yet it felt like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. He considered the potential consequences, the risks involved, but the thought of facing his family alone was far more daunting. He needed someone who could present a united front, someone who could help him navigate the labyrinth of expectations and scrutiny. With his heart pounding, Jack steeled himself for the conversation that would alter the course of both their lives. The prospect of such a proposal filled him with anxiety, yet a flicker of hope ignited within him. He had never been one to take risks, especially in matters of the heart, but perhaps this was an opportunity to form a connection that could transcend the boundaries of their respective worlds. He wondered if Emily could be the bridge between his lonely existence and the vibrant life he yearned for. As the day progressed, Jack's resolve solidified. He would approach Emily with his proposal, and in doing so, perhaps he could find a way to break free from the chains of expectation that bound him. The thought of having a partner, even a temporary one, filled him with a sense of possibility. Little did he know that this decision would set in motion a series of events that would challenge their perceptions of love, trust, and the very nature of their existence. As the holiday season unfolded in a swirl of glittering decorations and festive cheer, Jack and Emily found themselves caught in a delicate dance of pretense and unexpected connection. The air was thick with anticipation, and the world outside Jack's opulent home glowed with the warmth of holiday spirit. Inside, however, the atmosphere was charged with the complexities of their arrangement. They were preparing for a masquerade, one that would require not only careful planning but also a willingness to embrace the roles they were about to play. The fitting for their holiday attire was a pivotal moment, one that marked the transition from mere acquaintances to co-conspirators in their charade. Jack had arranged for a personal stylist to assist them, a necessity given the high expectations of his family. Emily arrived at the boutique, her heart racing with a mix of excitement and trepidation. The crisp air tingled against her skin, and the scent of pine and cinnamon wafted through the entrance as she stepped inside. The place was a riot of color and texture, with luxurious fabrics draped over mannequins and elegant gowns hanging from racks, waiting to be brought to life. As Jack entered, he exuded a nervous energy, his tall frame adorned in a tailored suit that highlighted the chiseled features of his face. He had always felt most comfortable in the shadows, but today, he was stepping into the spotlight, and the weight of expectation bore down on him. Emily watched as he moved with a mixture of confidence and unease, his mind racing with the implications of their facade. She felt a pang of empathy. She understood the pressure he was under, and it reminded her of her own struggles to provide for her daughter. The stylist greeted them with palpable enthusiasm, her eyes sparkling with creative ideas. She wasted no time in guiding them through the selection process. Emily was led to a fitting room, where the soft glow of lights highlighted her features. She gazed at herself in the mirror, feeling both foreign and beautiful as she tried on various dresses. Each fabric felt like a new persona, draping over her form in ways that made her feel elegant yet vulnerable. Jack, meanwhile, lingered outside, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts. He couldn't help but steal glances at Emily as she emerged, dressed in a stunning emerald gown that accentuated her curves and lit up her face. Her hair framed her features perfectly, and for a moment, Jack was taken aback by her beauty. He felt a strange warmth blossom within him, a connection that was beginning to transcend their original arrangement. As Emily twirled, the fabric swirling around her like a vibrant cloud, laughter bubbled up between them. It was a sound that seemed to break through the walls they had both built around themselves. Jack found himself easing into the moment, the tension in his shoulders relaxing as he watched her. They shared playful banter, teasing one another about the ridiculousness of their situation. It was a lightness that felt foreign yet exhilarating, and Jack couldn't help but wonder if this was the start of something more than just a ruse. Their fitting concluded with a selection of outfits that would serve as their armor for the social battlefield ahead. They left the boutique, the weight of their impending deception still looming but overshadowed by an unexpected camaraderie. As they walked side by side, the streets were alive with the sounds of laughter and carolers, and the festive spirit wrapped around them like a warm blanket. The world felt different, brighter, as if they were sharing a secret that only they understood. The first party was a spectacle of opulence, a grand affair hosted by Jack's family in their lavish mansion. The entrance was adorned with twinkling lights, and the scent of roasted chestnuts and mulled wine filled the air. Jack's heart raced as he stepped into the crowd, with Emily by his side, both clad in their carefully chosen outfits. The atmosphere was electric, filled with the hum of conversations and the clinking of glasses. As they mingled, Jack felt a sudden rush of anxiety, the familiar pressure of his family's expectations weighing heavily on him. He had always been the odd one out, the reclusive billionaire who preferred the solace of his home to the chaos of social gatherings. Yet, with Emily beside him, he felt a sense of grounding. Her presence was a comfort, a reminder that he didn't have to face this world alone. The guests, a sea of familiar faces, looked at them with curiosity. Jack's family had always been keen observers, and he could see his sister, a sharp-witted woman with an air of authority, studying them closely. She had a way of seeing through facades, and Jack felt a twinge of apprehension. Would she see through their deception? Would she sense the truth behind their smiles? As the evening unfolded, moments of genuine connection flickered between Jack and Emily. They shared glances that lingered a moment too long, laughter that echoed with a sincerity that surprised them both. There was a chemistry that felt tangible, a spark igniting in the air as they navigated the sea of guests together. Jack found himself leaning closer to Emily, their shoulders brushing as they moved through the crowd, and each touch sent a jolt of electricity through him. In the midst of the festivities, Jack's family gathered around them, scrutinizing their every interaction. Jack's sister was particularly watchful, her expression a blend of skepticism and determination. As she leaned in to catch snippets of their conversations, Jack could feel the heat of her gaze. Emily, too, felt the weight of scrutiny. Although they were both playing their parts, the tension was palpable. The night was a delicate balance between the facade they had constructed and the burgeoning reality of their connection. As the evening wore on, Jack and Emily found themselves stealing away to a quieter corner of the grand estate, where the sounds of the party faded into the background. There, they could breathe a little easier, the walls of expectation momentarily falling away. It was in this moment of respite that they shared a knowing glance, an unspoken acknowledgement of the complexity of their situation. They were two people bound by a lie, yet somehow, they had forged a bond that felt remarkably real amidst the pretense. However, As the night drew to a close, Jack's sister's suspicion loomed larger than ever. She was not one to accept things at face value, and her instincts were sharp. As she observed Jack and Emily, she began to piece together fragments of their story, determined to uncover the truth behind the facade. The stakes were rising, and Jack felt the pressure of his family's expectations tightening around him. In the days that followed, the holiday season became a whirlwind of parties, each one an opportunity for Jack and Emily to navigate their roles and explore the unexpected chemistry that had blossomed between them. Yet, the undercurrents of suspicion from Jack's family continued to swirl like a storm on the horizon. As they moved through the festive season, both Jack and Emily were acutely aware that their deception was becoming increasingly fragile, teetering on the edge of exposure. The holiday lights flickered with a deceptive cheer, masking the complexities of their arrangement. Jack's heart raced with the thrill of their connection, yet the shadow of his family's scrutiny loomed larger than ever. The unspoken truth hung heavily in the air, a reminder that their bond, however genuine, was built on a precarious foundation. As they continued to navigate the holiday season together, both were left to wonder how long they could maintain the illusion before the truth inevitably surfaced. As the days dragged on through the festive season, Emily found herself increasingly ensnared by the web of deception she had woven alongside Jack. What had started as a simple agreement, her posing as his wife to navigate the treacherous waters of high society gatherings, had morphed into something far more complex. Each day spent in Jack's luxurious home, each event they attended together, peeled back layers of her own insecurities while revealing the depths of Jack's solitude. It was during these moments of quiet reflection that guilt gnawed at her, a persistent reminder of the facade they were both maintaining. One evening, after a lavish dinner party filled with laughter and shallow conversations, the two found themselves retreating to Jack's expansive study. The flickering candlelight cast shadows on the walls, creating an intimate cocoon where the outside world's expectations faded away. Jack, leaning against the polished mahogany desk, his shoulders slumping slightly, began to share his unvarnished thoughts. He spoke of his childhood, how wealth had shielded him from the world but had also isolated him in a gilded cage. He described the suffocating pressure to conform to his family's ideals, to be the perfect son, the perfect heir. As he spoke, Emily could see the vulnerability in his eyes, the cracks in his otherwise composed facade. With each confession, Emily's heart ached for him. She understood, in a way that resonated deeply, the feeling of being trapped. Her own struggles as a single mother echoed Jack's tale. The sacrifices she made for her son, the dreams she shelved for the sake of survival, all mirrored Jack's own battles against the expectations thrust upon him. And yet, here they were, two unlikely companions in a charade that had somehow forged a connection between them, one that felt more genuine with each revelation. In that moment, Emily yearned to strip away the layers of pretense that enveloped them. She wanted to tell Jack about her own dreams, her aspirations to provide a better life for her son, the weight of responsibility that often overwhelmed her. But fear held her tongue. Fear of revealing too much and becoming too vulnerable in a situation that was already precarious. Instead, she listened, absorbing Jack's words, allowing his honesty to wrap around her like a warm blanket. As the night wore on, they shared stories of their pasts, each anecdote revealing more about their core selves. Emily recounted the struggles she faced after her marriage fell apart, the loneliness that crept in like a shadow. Jack listened intently, his gaze unwavering, as if he were trying to imprint her words on his memory. There was a comfort in their exchange, a sense of understanding that transcended the roles they were playing. They were no longer just employer and employee. They were two souls navigating their own storms, seeking solace in each other's company. The bond that formed between them during those late-night conversations was both exhilarating and terrifying. Emily found herself drawn to Jack's authenticity, a stark contrast to the polished personas she had encountered at every event. He was not just a billionaire. He was a man grappling with the weight of his life choices, searching for meaning amidst the chaos. She admired his courage, his willingness to confront his vulnerabilities, and it made her question her own hesitations. As the days passed, The media began to buzz with rumors about the reclusive billionaire and his mystery wife. Photos snapped at the party showed them laughing, sharing quiet moments, looking every bit the picture-perfect couple. Emily's heart raced each time she caught a glimpse of their images in the tabloids. The public perception of their relationship was a stark contrast to the reality they had created. The laughter and smiles were genuine yet laced with the underlying truth of their deception. But as the attention grew, so did the pressure. Emily felt the weight of her decision pressing down on her, suffocating her with guilt. She often caught herself staring into the mirror, grappling with the reflection of the woman who was playing a role that was never meant to be hers. Who was she in this world of affluence and expectation? And what would happen when the truth inevitably surfaced? The thought haunted her, gnawing at her conscience. Meanwhile, Jack was increasingly aware of the implications of their ruse. He could feel the tension building within him, a storm that threatened to unleash at any moment. The more his family scrutinized their relationship, the more he realized how deeply he had come to care for Emily. It was a feeling he had not anticipated, a warmth that blossomed in the midst of their carefully constructed deception. He admired her strength, her resilience, and the way she navigated the challenges of her life with grace. One evening, while watching the snow fall outside, he turned to Emily, his expression serious. In that moment, he knew he had to address the elephant in the room. The connection between them had grown too significant to ignore, yet they remained trapped in a web of lies. Jack could see the conflict in her eyes, the way her brow furrowed as she wrestled with her own thoughts. As the night deepened, they sat in silence, the crackling fireplace the only sound breaking the stillness. Jack's heart raced as he contemplated the path forward. The easy banter and laughter they had shared suddenly felt heavy with unspoken truths. He wanted to tell her how much she meant to him, how she had awakened something within him that he thought was lost. But the fear of their deception overshadowed his emotions. It was in this quiet moment of reflection that the world outside intruded. A sudden notification on Jack's phone broke the silence, pulling him back to reality. As he glanced at the screen, his heart sank. A video had gone viral, capturing candid moments of their time together at the parties. Moments that had felt so intimate and genuine now laid bare for the world to see. The media frenzy that followed was relentless, with headlines speculating about the legitimacy of their relationship, the truth behind their connection. Suddenly, the private world they had created was thrust into the public eye. Jack's heart raced as he processed the implications. This revelation would force him to confront his feelings for Emily, to publicly acknowledge the bond they had formed amidst the charade. The weight of the situation pressed down on him, and he could feel the tension crackling in the air. As the night wore on, he and Emily exchanged glances filled with uncertainty, both aware that the moment they had been dreading had arrived. The very foundation of their arrangement was now under scrutiny, and the stakes had never been higher. With a sense of inevitability looming over them, they both understood that their lives were about to change dramatically, and the truth, however painful, would soon be unveiled. The media storm surrounding Jack and Emily grew more intense with each passing day, a whirlwind that threatened to engulf them both. Jack's name, once a quiet echo in the world of Bitcoin investments, had become a household term, largely due to the viral video that showcased their seemingly romantic escapades at the holiday parties. Each clip that circulated online painted a picture of a fairy tale romance, yet beneath the glimmering surface, a tumultuous reality churned. Emily couldn't shake off the feeling that she was merely a pawn in Jack's elaborate game, a character in a story he had crafted for the sake of public approval rather than genuine affection. The tension between them was palpable. Jack, who had initially seemed so confident, now found himself mired in uncertainty, unsure of how to navigate the relationship that had burgeoned from a mere arrangement into something deeper. He had started to recognize the warmth that Emily brought into his life. The way she made the walls of his opulent mansion feel less like a fortress and more like a home. Yet, with every headline that splashed their names across the tabloids, he felt the distance between them grow. Emily often caught herself stealing glances at Jack when she thought he wasn't looking. She watched him pace around the living room, his brow furrowed in thought, his hands running through his hair in frustration. He was a man caught between two worlds, the one filled with wealth and expectations, and the one that beckoned him towards authenticity. She could see the turmoil in his eyes, a mirror to her own growing concerns about their precarious situation. Had the bond they formed been built on something real, or was it merely a convenient illusion? In the quiet moments they shared, Emily felt the weight of her decision pressing down on her. She had agreed to this charade, believing it would provide an opportunity for her family, a way to create a better life for her daughter. However, as the days turned into weeks, she began to question whether the sacrifice was worth it. Jack's family was suffocating, their expectations heavy like a shroud over her shoulders. She could feel their scrutiny, their judgment, and it only deepened her sense of isolation. The more she tried to fit into Jack's world, the more she felt like an outsider, a mere actress playing a role that she was never meant to inhabit. The confrontation with Jack's sister had been the final straw. Emily could still feel the sting of the accusations directed at her, the words hanging in the air like a bitter reminder of her status in Jack's life. Gold digger. Those two words echoed in her mind, a label that felt so foreign yet frighteningly accurate in the context of their arrangement. She had poured her heart into this role, but was it truly love that had blossomed, or just a convenient partnership? The thought gnawed at her, leaving her restless and anxious. As she stormed out of the lavish family estate, the icy wind whipped around her, mirroring the turmoil in her heart. Each step away from Jack felt like a betrayal, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that she had been wronged. The tears that streamed down her face were a mixture of frustration and confusion. She had never intended to become embroiled in a situation that felt so tangled and complex. She had come to care for Jack, to see beyond his wealth and reputation. But could he really feel the same way about her? Or was she just a temporary distraction, a placeholder in a life filled with expectations he felt he could never escape? Meanwhile, Jack remained inside, grappling with the fallout of his sister's confrontation. He could still hear the sharpness in her voice, the way she had dissected Emily's character with a single sentence, and the horror of it made his stomach churn. He had never intended for Emily to be caught in the crossfire of his family's ambitions and judgments. In that moment, he recognized how deeply he had underestimated the repercussions of their deception. It wasn't just about pretending to be married. It was about the lives intertwined beneath the guise of a fabricated relationship. Jack's heart raced as he realized that he needed to reach out to Emily, to pull her back into the safety of their shared bond. He felt a surge of desperation. He needed to explain, to apologize for the chaos that had unfolded, but as he picked up his phone, he hesitated. The silence on the other end of the line felt deafening. He had expected her to pick up, to respond with the warmth she had so often shown him, but only emptiness greeted him. It was a stark reminder of the rift that had formed between them, and the implications of their arrangement weighed heavily on his conscience. He paced the expansive living room, surrounded by opulence yet feeling utterly alone. The grand chandelier above him sparkled, a stark contrast to the darkness that seemed to envelop his heart. He thought about the moments they had shared, the laughter and the lightness that had filled his home during the holiday season. It had been a respite from the loneliness that had plagued him for so long. But now, that warmth felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by the very deception that had brought them together. As he sank into a plush armchair, he reflected on what Emily had meant to him. She was more than just a housekeeper posing as a wife. She was a breath of fresh air in a stale world, a reminder of the beauty and authenticity. In her presence, he had felt seen and understood, something he had longed for amidst the facades of high society. The thought of losing her, of watching her walk away from his life, brought a new wave of panic. He knew he had to confront the truth, but the fear of what that might mean kept him frozen in place. The moments ticked by, each one amplifying the silence that stretched between them. He could no longer ignore the fact that he had a choice to make. He could either continue to hide behind the facade or take a leap of faith and embrace the reality of his feelings for Emily. But what if she didn't feel the same way? What if she had already decided to leave him behind? The questions spiraled in his mind, a tumultuous storm that left him feeling more lost than ever. Outside, the snow continued to fall, blanketing the world in a serene white layer that contrasted sharply with the chaos inside him. The holiday season, once filled with promise and joy, now felt tainted by the consequences of their actions. Jack could only hope that Emily would find it in her heart to forgive him, to trust him again. But as the minutes turned into hours, the distance between them felt insurmountable, a chasm filled with uncertainty and unspoken words. In that moment of solitude, Jack realized that love, once found, could not be easily dismissed. It demanded honesty, vulnerability, and a willingness to confront the truth, no matter how painful it might be. And he knew he had to find Emily before it was too late. As the holiday season drew to a close, the grand ballroom glittered with opulence, a testament to the wealth that surrounded Jack. Chandeliers sparkled like constellations above, their light casting a warm glow over the sea of elegantly dressed guests. Jack stood at the edge of the room, a lone figure among the revelers, feeling the weight of his solitude more acutely than ever. The laughter and chatter buzzed around him, but he felt disconnected, as if an invisible barrier separated him from the joy he once sought. He took a deep breath, trying to steady his racing heart. This gala was supposed to be a celebration, yet he felt like an imposter in his own life. The demands of his family loomed large in his mind, their expectations pressing down on him like a heavy cloak. He had come to this event alone, an unthinkable scenario given the circumstances of the past few weeks. The absence of Emily, who had transformed his experience of these gatherings, felt like a gaping hole in his chest. As he scanned the crowd, his eyes fell upon a familiar silhouette. There she was, Emily, gliding through the throng with an air of grace that captivated him. She wore a striking red dress that accentuated her figure, the fabric clinging just right, and her hair cascaded in soft waves around her shoulders. For a moment, the noise of the gala faded away, and all he could see was her. Memories of their time together flooded back, her laughter, their shared glances, the warmth of her presence. Jack's heart raced as he felt an overwhelming surge of emotion. It was a whirlwind of longing and regret, the realization that he had let something extraordinary slip through his fingers. Emily had brought a lightness to his life that he had never known before, and now, without her, everything felt muted and dull. He wanted to call out her name, to pull her into his arms and confess the depth of his feelings, but he hesitated, the weight of their deception holding him back. Emily seemed to move through the crowd with purpose, her expression a blend of determination and uncertainty. She had decided to attend the gala on her own terms, shedding the role of Jack's wife for the night. There was a sense of empowerment in her stride, a quiet confidence that radiated from her. But as she caught sight of Jack, her expression shifted, and for a brief moment, their eyes locked across the room. The world around them blurred as the distance between them seemed to dissolve. In that instant, they both understood the turmoil that brewed beneath the surface. Jack felt a magnetic pull, urging him to cross the space that separated them. He took a step forward, then another, feeling the collective gaze of the attendees shift toward him as he approached her. In that moment, it was just the two of them, a cocoon of unspoken words and raw emotion wrapping around them. As he drew nearer, Jack saw the vulnerability in Emily's eyes, the flicker of hope mingled with uncertainty. When he reached her, the noise of the gala faded into the background, leaving only the rhythm of their beating hearts. The air was thick with tension, and for a moment, they stood face to face, the weight of their shared history hanging heavily between them. In that charged silence, the truth of their feelings hung precariously in the air. Jack wanted to reach out, to bridge the gap that had formed between them, but the reality of their situation loomed like a specter. He could see the conflict in Emily's gaze, the struggle between what they had forged together and the facade they had constructed. Her expression flickered with a mix of longing and fear, and he knew that she was grappling with the implications of their relationship. Jack took a deep breath, feeling the urgency of the moment pressing down upon him. He wanted to tell her everything, to share the depth of his feelings, the way she had changed him, the way he could no longer imagine a life without her. But the shadows of their deception loomed large, threatening to eclipse the light they had discovered in each other. As they stood together, the glimmer of hope in Emily's eyes faded, replaced by a flicker of doubt. She felt the weight of judgment from Jack's family, the pressure to fit into a world that had never truly accepted her. The fear of being seen as a mere pawn in Jack's life clawed at her insides. She had entered this arrangement with the intention of helping him, but now it felt as though she had lost herself in the process. Jack could sense her turmoil, the way her shoulders tensed as she took a step back, creating distance. His heart sank at the sight, the realization that their connection was fragile and could easily shatter under the scrutiny of the world around them. He wanted to reassure her, to tell her that she was more than a role to him, that she was the person who had seen him for who he truly was, beyond the money and expectations. As the music shifted to a softer melody, Emily looked away, her gaze drifting to the swirling dancers, the laughter that echoed around them feeling like a distant memory. Jack reached for her hand, his touch gentle, imploring her to look back at him. The warmth of his palm against hers sent a jolt of electricity through her, igniting a spark of hope amidst the chaos swirling in her mind. With a careful breath, Jack finally spoke, the words tumbling out in a rush as he poured out his heart. He laid bare the feelings he had tried to suppress, the way Emily had infiltrated every corner of his mind, the way he admired her strength and resilience. He confessed how lost he felt without her, how her absence had turned the world into a gray landscape devoid of joy. Emily listened, her heart racing, torn between the euphoria of his words and the burden of their deception. She wanted to believe him, to trust that what they had was real, but the nagging doubts clawed at her. She was a housekeeper, and he was a billionaire. The gulf between their lives felt insurmountable, yet, as she looked into his eyes, she saw the sincerity there, the raw vulnerability that mirrored her own. The connection they shared was palpable, a bond forged in honesty amid a whirlwind of lies. In that moment, they both understood that their feelings were genuine, transcending the roles they had played. But the reality of their situation crept back in, a cold reminder that the world outside would never be as accepting. Emily felt the weight of judgment threaten to crush her as she wrestled with the implications of their relationship. She wanted to fight for them, to take the leap of faith that Jack's words inspired. But fear held her back, the voices of his family echoing in her mind, warning her of the potential heartbreak that lay ahead. In that charged moment, they stood at a precipice, their hearts intertwined yet shackled by the circumstances they had created. Jack felt the urgency to bridge the gap, to make her understand that love could conquer all. But the enormity of their situation loomed over them, casting shadows on their fragile bond. As the gala continued around them, laughter and music swirling in a cacophony of celebration, Jack and Emily remained locked in their own world. A world that hung in the balance, teetering on the edge of transformation or despair. They were two souls drawn together by fate, caught in a web of deception that threatened to tear them apart. In that moment, they both knew that the choice they made next would determine the course of their lives forever. As the evening approached, Jack felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He stood in front of the grand mirror in his lavish home, adjusting the collar of his crisp white shirt, his reflection betraying a mix of determination and anxiety. The lavish decor of the living room surrounded him, all glimmering lights and opulent ornaments, but Jack's mind was consumed by the impending family dinner. Tonight was the night he had promised himself he would reveal the truth to his family about Emily. Yet, as he practiced his speech in front of the mirror, doubts crept into his mind, gnawing at him like an insistent whisper. Meanwhile, in the cozy corner of the kitchen, Emily had just received a call that sent her heart racing. The voice on the other end spoke of a job opportunity abroad, a chance to step into a world she had only ever dreamed of. It was everything she had ever wanted, a chance to provide for her son, to escape the suffocating grips of her current life. But the news felt like a double-edged sword. The prospect of leaving Jack, who had become so much more than just a wealthy employer, twisted her stomach. Torn between her dreams and the burgeoning feelings she had for him, Emily felt a familiar feeling of being cornered. As she hung up the phone, the weight of her emotions crashed over her like a tidal wave. What would it mean to accept this job? Could she truly walk away from Jack now, just when they were starting to understand each other in a way that felt profound? The thought of leaving him, especially after everything they had shared during the whirlwind of the holiday season, felt unbearable. She stood in the kitchen, gripping the countertop as if it might anchor her to the ground, her mind racing through the implications of her next move. The dinner table was set with meticulous care, each plate positioned perfectly, each fork and knife gleaming under the chandelier's soft light. Jack's family members began to filter in, their laughter resonating through the halls like an echo of a past he couldn't quite reconcile with his present. He watched as his sister entered, her eyes sharp and calculating, already sizing up Emily, who was nervously arranging the flowers in the center of the table. As the family settled into their chairs, Jack could feel the tension building within him, like a rubber band stretched too tightly. He had rehearsed what he would say countless times, but now, with everyone present, he found himself grasping for the right words. He felt Emily's presence beside him, her nervous energy blending with his own, and for a fleeting moment, he wished they could escape from this dinner altogether and just be themselves, free from judgment and expectations. The clinking of glasses and the aroma of roasted meat filled the air, but Jack barely registered it. He knew he had to speak up soon, to break the unspoken expectation that loomed over the table like a dark cloud. As the conversation flowed around him, he caught glimpses of Emily's apprehensive glances towards him, her worry mirroring his own. It was now or never. With a deep breath, he finally stood up, drawing the attention of every family member at the table. The room fell silent, the clattering of silverware halting mid-motion. The air thickened with anticipation, and Jack's heart raced as he locked eyes with Emily, silently seeking her support. She nodded ever so slightly, and in that moment, he found the strength to speak. "I need to tell you all something important," he began, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions within him. "Emily is not just my housekeeper. She's the woman I love." Gasps filled the room, a mixture of shock and disbelief. Jack's sister, ever the skeptic, leaned forward with her arms crossed, her expression one of disdain. "You must be joking, Jack," she interjected, her voice cold. "You can't be serious. A relationship like that is beneath you." Jack felt the sting of her words but stood firm, unwilling to let her dismiss Emily any longer. "No, I'm very serious. Emily has become an integral part of my life. She understands me in a way that no one else does." He glanced at Emily, who sat frozen in her seat, her expression a mixture of surprise and fear. He could sense her apprehension, the weight of his declaration pressing down on her shoulders. He continued, his voice rising above the murmurs, "Our relationship is real, and it deserves respect, not judgment. I won't hide her anymore." The tension crackled in the air as his family processed his words. His mother, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke up, her voice calm yet firm. "Jack, we've always wanted the best for you, but love doesn't come with a price tag. If Emily makes you happy, then we should be supportive." This unexpected display of solidarity sent shockwaves through the dining room. Jack's sister narrowed her eyes, her brows furrowed in frustration. "But she's not one of us, Mom," she retorted, her voice dripping with condescension. "You can't just overlook her background. What do you really know about her?" Jack felt his pulse quicken, ready to defend Emily against the onslaught of criticism that was bound to follow. But before he could respond, their mother continued, her tone resolute. "I've watched the two of you together, and it's clear that Emily brings out the best in you, Jack. Love is what matters, not social standing." The room fell silent again, the tension shifting as Jack's mother's words hung in the air like a lifeline thrown to a drowning man. Emily's eyes widened, a mix of gratitude and disbelief washing over her. Suddenly, she felt a glimmer of hope spark within her, a possibility that perhaps she could belong in this world after all. Jack could see the shift in Emily's demeanor, the way her shoulders relaxed as the weight of judgment began to lift. He felt a surge of affection for her, realizing that this moment was not just a declaration of love, but a testament to their shared strength. As the dinner progressed, Jack's family slowly began to warm up to the idea of Emily as a legitimate part of their lives. Conversations shifted and laughter returned, albeit cautiously. Jack could see the barriers starting to crumble, the walls of preconceived notions being dismantled piece by piece. As dessert was served, Jack took Emily's hand under the table, a subtle yet powerful gesture of unity. She looked at him, and in her eyes, he saw a reflection of his own hope and determination. They had both faced challenges, but together, they could forge a path that was uniquely theirs, one built on love and acceptance. With the evening drawing to a close, Jack and Emily exchanged glances that spoke volumes. They had weathered the storm together, and what lay ahead felt uncertain yet exciting. The future was wide open, filled with possibilities they had yet to explore. As the family began to disperse, Jack and Emily remained at the table, hand in hand, ready to embrace whatever life had in store for them next. Together, they were ready to step into a new life, united and stronger than ever.